kind of at a tough intersection here. I think the first thing that we would want to communicate about is the strength of the person behind the literature, the author, the artist. And we can do that in two ways, and he exists either way. One is the old school way, in a more historicity sort of criticism, and one is a more new style where we're doing, maybe more formalism, but where we're looking at just the text. Now, people argue for the history version of looking at text, so that means learning about the person, learning about their context and their surroundings. By the way, this doesn't really have to do with other conversations we've had related to this on the Discord, with that troll dude. But that people argue for, you've got to know the person, and, there's a person there with feelings and emotion and thinkings, thoughtings, and they're putting them into the text. And to understand the text, you got to have a good understanding of the person and their historical place, geographically and temporally. But we can also find the person within the technique. So if we just for fun, we cut out all the contextual questioning and we just look at the text, okay, we can find their skill, we can find what they're passionate about, we can find what they mean. And now sometimes it's interesting there, I brought up like Nietzsche the other day, but there's two ways we can, there's a way we can split that up into two. We have what they mean by what they say and what they mean by how they inhabit what they say. How the words they use and the idea constructs, I love Jesus, someone might write in a book. And then the way their literature tells whether they actually believe that, whether that's ingrained in their heart, whether they've thought about it enough to an extent to be trustworthy. It's all told right in their literary technique. And this is cool about Yanwu. I think my favorite movie director is Jacques Rivette, and so if you watch the movie Celine and Julie Go Boating, they watch this narrative happen and play out, and I'll let you watch the movie, I'm not going to give you the plot. They watch this narrative play out, and then eventually they've watched it so much, they physically enter the narrative, and then after they've entered it long enough, then they start making changes within the narrative, right? So it's kind of a meta thing. So that brings us to Yanwu, and when people write, the techniques they use are due to what they've spent time with, what they've been advertising to themselves. And someone like Yanwu, who was fierce about spending time in Zen and with the koans specifically, intellectual, like thinking about them, and he specifically says this. He talks about Zuedo and how cool Zuedo was because he spent so much time with the koans that he knew them so well, and then he finally started writing poems about them after he had him totally integrated into himself. So, you watch the sword maker, then you forge your sword, and then you wield your sword, right? We make meaning out of the things we pay attention to, or we're slaves to the things we pay attention to. Up to you. Not that those are the same thing. That's actually a dichotomous choice. So get someone like Yanwu, who has been so fierce about this one subject that he starts to write with that subject in mind. So we get this really cool thing where he's talking about the thing, but he's also showing it to us through his writing. Now, there's always the question of, okay, is he doing this on purpose and is he not? And that's a question, yes. And there are ways to sort of play around with that and guess at that, but it's not as relevant. And then we'll take it a step further and we'll say, wow, these are really great literary techniques. And we can come from one way or the other. One way we can come from, they're really great literary techniques because of how intentful he uses them. But we can also notice what they do with our brain, what they do with our heart, what they do with our emotions, how they push and pull us. So when we read, a very simple thing is like an illusion, right? You know, the poetry in our head. Why did I just say the word illusion? Apples are always atrophying. Not a very poetic line, and also not illusions. Okay, that was the most fucked up example. The example was supposed to be assonance, but then I thought I was saying the word alliteration, so I thought the word alliteration was wrong, and I was supposed to say assonance, but I wasn't even saying alliteration, I was saying illusions. Anyway, we can figure out what these things do to the human brain, like so, and we that's a viable method, 100%. Like it's a mechanical process because things have emerged, like the way storytelling goes, even the way we experiment with storytelling. We notice trends, and very obvious trends, like normally storytelling temporally matches our experience, where it's like cause and effect, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then you get something like the Odyssey, where, you know, maybe one of the first books that skipped around in time, and we're still using that that linear sense of storytelling in our literature, and then we're also still using that jumping around in time. Right, starts with the boy, and then it goes back to the dad. So these things emerge into the world for a reason, because they do something which helps our brain or our heart, however you want to put it. Either way, it's mechanical. And so we can look at those things, find those things. We can find Yanwu within the text, we can find the author within the text, and then we can think about the things he's doing and why they work so well.